Hello and welcome, everybody. Let's talk about Quant today, specifically about the Quant ETP that was released a month and a half, 2 months ago, and kind of got brushed under the rug. No one really talked about it. And when I revisited that idea, it made me think, you know what? There's going to be more ETPs, ETFs, and index funds, which Quant's already in a few, that in the short, moderate, and long term, it's all going to benefit because it brings both institutional inflows and the masses of retail over time. So in this video, I'm going to hit over what I expect to happen. What are the likelihoods? What are the suspicions? A little bit of rumors with it, all backed up by what we already know, and just a little bit more details about how Quant fits perfectly into tokenized assets, interoperability, the real world crypto adoption, specifically CBDCs, and how this is going to support the notion of far more ETPs, ETFs, and funds coming in. So if you're bullish on Quant, this video is going to give you the full picture with institutional demand, future speculation. And if you guys have any questions, you know where to put them down in the comments below. And if you get anything beneficial from this, please do press the like and subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. But regardless, let's move forward. All right, so first thing we need to do before we talk about buyers and speculation, is make something quite simple. The Quant ETP that was announced and launched on September 24th of 2025, not too long ago, it's an ETP, not an ETF. So an ETP is an exchange-traded product. Quick and easy breakdown. Right? ETF is a fund tracking multiple assets regulated, typically multiple, usually in the US. It can be single. Bitcoin ETF, right? ETP is a much broader category. It can track a single crypto much more commonly, and it's more often in Europe, right? ETN, ETC, ETP, they all fall under the same big umbrella. So when we have the Valour Quant ETP that came out of Europe, it's essentially a wrapped version of Quant that institutions can buy through just traditional brokers, retirement accounts, regulated exchanges, several different options for it, instead of creating a wallet or moving tokens. Right? So this is how big money enters a crypto asset before an ETF even exists. So this is the first step of great news for future great news. So Valour launched the Quant ETP, and the launch was quiet, right? There was no hype. There was no crazy marketing. It was just a regulated product for professional investors. And the part that most people don't realize is since launching, the product has actually consistently shown regular inflows. It's been growing month over month. The AUM, it's got a clear pattern of accumulation when Quant dips. And another shout out to Mind Crypto. He does a great job of tracking, and you can even tell when large whales came and started buying at certain price ranges. Happened really frequently in like a 2-week period here. They got the news, they jumped in, and there's reasons why you see large buys at certain ranges. And this is typical of institutional behavior. It's not retail. They don't FOMO the shit out of this. They don't chase green candles. They're quiet, and they actually buy the dips. Reasons why I recommend it. It's what smart money always does. And the fact that Quant even got its own TP is huge, because only a tiny handful of crypto actually have this right now. There's a lot that talk about it, but can you name 5 that have an ETF or ETP? Not that it works. They're actually out. There's really not. So now if there's actually money coming from this, who's actually been buying it? So we can't see the exact individuals or entities, but we can see the categories of buyers based off the type exchanges Valour works with. So again, these are not your casual retail buyers, which is what we want in a long-term asset, specifically one that's going to be used and ran by banks, fintechs, governments, etc. And that's what they want too. That's why Quant's always advertised towards industrial, not us. So one big group is European professional investors, right? These include the wealth managers who just want exposure to crypto without dealing with all the storage, wallet, all the stuff that we pretend to love to do, right? And Quant fits perfectly for this because there's a low supply. Enterprise use cases. It's ISO compliant, and it's far from a degen token. It's got use, and the people who are buying this are in the know with the people that are going to be using it. Again, follow whale buys, people. So it checks every institutional box. We also have banks and brokerage platforms that are getting into this because Valour's exchange partners primarily onboard banks and asset managers. Again, what does Quant usually go after? Who's going to be using it? And these institutions are buying the same time. So when volatility is low, when prices consolidate, and when regulation gets a little bit more clarity. Again, it's just perfect timing for our boy Quant. The smallest group here is going to be the long-term allocators, or we'll call it the pension funds and family offices, right? These groups love to go into projects that have real-world utility, predictable supply, and enterprise adoption potential. And we can repeat similar things, but the reasons why those that forefront retail are getting into things like ETPs, ETFs, and index funds, it's pretty obvious, or at least it should be. And also realize there's a fourth group, funds preparing for tokenized finance. This one gets a little spicy, right? Banks prepare for CBDCs, tokenized treasuries, and other interoperable testing. They're often going to accumulate the underlying token of a network they're experimenting with, and they never have to and usually won't announce it publicly. History example, right? When L1 networks like Polkadot and Solana first launched their ETPs, banks were buying them months before retail ever noticed because they can keep it quiet. They can do it over the counter when things dip down, so it doesn't even make a difference on the price action. They don't have to announce large buys. And Quant is presumably, can't prove it, but is very likely following the same pattern right now. We know that there are large institutions or whales that are buying thousands of Quant at a time and putting them into wallets that have only Quant, no Ethereum or anything else to transfer it out. So they're sitting there for a reason. Right? And it happens, again, when prices go down and no one knows about it unless you follow one of those two awesome guys that go ahead and track it all the time. So though we can't technically prove it at a time, again, quick little shout out to Mind Crypto. Watch one or two of his videos. He points out all of the wallets that are doing this, and he has speculated for a while, and I have nothing to disagree with, that these are banks and institutions doing exactly this. So as of now, there's no strong rumors of any more Quant institutional products like any more ETPs or a confirmed ETF in the US or UK, but there are some bullish signals really pointing in one direction here. Valour, the company, rarely launches a single asset ETP unless there's institutional demand behind the scenes, right? So those of us who already own Quant, and we are so convinced that there's going to be institutional demands, I mean, based off of Quant's being trialed by literally some of the top 5 largest banks in the world, Valour wouldn't launch this if they didn't think they could make money from it. And they tend to front run ETFs ahead of time so banks can get in, they can buy theirs, and then everything goes up with legislation and regulation, which we're expecting a lot of clarity starting early mid 2026. Not coincidental. So Valour is obviously bullish because they're going ahead and doing this. Secondarily, Quant's partnerships align directly with ETF style cases, without a doubt, right? I mean, look at who Quant and Gilbert Veridian, I'll pronounce his name differently every time, good old G. Look who they work with: CBDC pilots, central banks, LAC chains, SIAs like MasterCard Company, Oracles, Nexi, the Digital Pound Foundation, the Bank of International Settlements. ETPs and ETFs get launched for assets involved in institutional infrastructure. Quant was literally built for this shit. Now, if we're looking at, we're going to more likely get ETPs or ETFs from Europe versus US. I would expect more from Europe, specifically UK first. Specifically, issuers like 21 Shares, Wisdom Tree, more from Valour would be cool, VanEck. They're likely going to be the ones that are producing more of these. We could also see multi-asset crypto baskets or crypto funds along with these single asset institutional products from these same companies. A multi-crypto interoperability basket, including Quant, I think is statistically pretty likely, right? I mean, Quant's already on the Coinbase 50. It's got a small percentage of that, which it will increase as more people buy Quant. If you're not familiar with the way that works, put down below. I can make a whole video about the way that does. But imagine if they go ahead and someone releases an interoperability or an ISO basket, right? A fund for it. You could end up having Quant, Chainlink, XRP, HBAR, IOTA. These kind of things don't usually get my attention. That one potentially would. There's also a really good chance that we're going to have a digital assets infrastructure ETF, very similar to what I just kind of stated, but there's going to be something like this, right? RWA and tokenization isn't only big right now, it's kind of one of the main 2, maybe 3, you can argue, directions that crypto is going to go. So they're going to have them. Very certain about that. And Quant is most certainly going to be in. Why? Because it's literally the only crypto project that provides enterprise-grade interoperability for CBDCs, ability of transfer CBDCs, connect the private blockchains, tokenized assets. It does everything that's involved in digital asset infrastructure, right? And I would love to see it partnered up and with Chainlink. That'd be small. They usually have 3 to 5 as the small funds. I mean, go ahead and throw in IOTA or Onyx or XRP, and we got a nice little power group there. Looking forward to the day that one gets launched. A little bit more speculation, but with some other baskets, multi-assets that could end up coming as an ETP or an index fund, right? Between Valour 21 shares or VanEck, they could easily create a lot of ETPs like an institutional interoperability index. Again, give me Quant, Link, XBAR, and IOTA would be awesome. And it's logical because they all fall in the same enterprise categories. There could be a digital pound or a CBDC infrastructure fund. And we already know the likely winners of this one because they're being tested by the tokenized pound, the digital euro, and several others. Right? And this could be the same groups. Throw an XRP into this one. And that would be a great backing and setup for liquidity for all the stable coins that would have to be involved with a project like this. I think that one's incredibly likely as soon as they announce a digital euro or pound having a little ETF or an index fund built in with those projects. They might even be able to mix, I don't know how the regulations work with this, but they might even be able to mix blockchain with non-blockchain companies and sell them all together too. I know that's going to cause a little bit more of the legality shit on their side, but that's for them to figure out. I just like the idea of it. So personally, I don't think there's a strong chance of a US ETF of Quant anytime soon. Really don't, but there also doesn't have to be. US is definitely a little further behind than the UK in terms of the regulation or the setups for CBDCs. Fully expect the digital euro and pound to happen way before the digital dollar. I understand Trump said there won't be CBDCs, but there's going to be stable coins instead that's going to have the exact same purpose. But the US government is still a company, right? Do realize that governments are still companies. They still have to make money. So if they see all the regulatory banks are now using 1 to 3 of these crypto, even if they're not US based, we're going to want to jump in eventually. Might just be a year or two behind. So I would not expect too much ETFs or ETP possibility from the US for till at least 2028, give or take. But we don't need it to. It'll just be another bullish event on top of everything else that happens once it does. And if you've been in Quant for a while, you're used to the silent pump. I had a couple of people ask, well, then why hasn't Quant pumped by this news? Why did no one hear about it? Because retail doesn't give a shit because Quant does not advertise to retail. They started talking a little bit more about it, but they have no need to. It actually will not behoove them to target retail right now because their main customers are the banks and institutions and corporations. So they would not want retail to compete with the people who are actually going to use the product. Right? Let them get all their Quant first, and then they will slam it down our throats with everything that they've kind of told us, but not directly. So then retail comes and buys, pumps up the price and of everyone who bought it before, their actual clients of banks and institutions, and then it has them all set up, and we're happy because we feel like we got in early. If you're watching this, you actually got in early. Yeah. So retail always FOMOs at the end. Do not worry about it. Price will show. So to summarize that entire little rant, right, there is increasing institutional interest in Quant. There has been for a while, and we can actually measure based off of how many whales are buying when the price dips and everyone else is afraid and scared shitless. Perfect. ETP inflow pattern is extremely bullish, and they're making some money from it. Banks, asset managers, long-term allocators, these are the ones that are buying, and those are the ones that should. They're going to buy and they're going to hold. This decreases selling pressure when everything does actually go up and retail FOMOs in. This allows more products, baskets, thematic funds, interoperability indexes, all that fun stuff, increases the likelihood significantly. And Quant's enterprise and government connections, it makes it one of the most ETF and ETP ready crypto out there. So what do you guys think? Have you jumped in or know anyone that has actually heard of or bought any of the ETP? What are your thoughts about ETFs? Show your favorite little Quant factoid down below, and I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.